They laughed at her in front of everyone, calling her too soft for service. The backyard erupted with their mockery, glasses raised in cruel amusement. What they didn't know, what no one at that seaside gathering dared to imagine, was that she had once flown through burning skies to pull a Navy SEAL from death's grip, the same man their son worshipped as a hero. That night, as waves crashed against Carolina shores, her silence stopped being a shield. It became her weapon, and the reckoning they never saw coming had already begun. My name is Emily Carter, and I've flown through hell more times than my family has had Sunday dinners. But sitting at this weathered picnic table in my parents' backyard in Wilmington, North Carolina, you'd never know it. To them, I'm still the quiet girl who chose the Air Force because she couldn't handle real life. The salt air mixed with barbecue smoke as another round of laughter erupted from the guests, mostly Dad's veteran buddies and Mom's book club friends. My brother Ryan, fresh from his corporate promotion, was holding court again, beer in hand, that familiar smirk playing at his lips. "You know what Emily does in the Air Force," he announced, voice carrying over the crashing waves beyond the dunes. "She's basically an Uber driver with wings, flies cargo, not combat." The laughter came in waves, each one sharper than the Atlantic breeze cutting through my thin cardigan. Mom tittered behind her wine glass, her eyes avoiding mine. Dad chuckled, shaking his head like Ryan had just told the cleverest joke. "Emily's just good at paperwork, not pressure," Ryan continued, warming to his audience. "Remember when she cried during her first driving test? Now she pretends to be Top Gun." My fingers found the condensation on my untouched beer bottle, tracing patterns while my mind traveled back to Mogadishu 3 years ago. The cockpit of my C-130 Hercules, red warning lights painting everything in blood, RPG smoke trails, the port engine on fire, 8 Navy SEALs in my cargo hold, 3 of them critical, and death closing in from all sides. But I said nothing, just smiled that practiced smile I'd perfected over the years. "Come on, Em," Ryan prodded, mistaking my silence for defeat. "Tell everyone about your most dangerous mission. Was it delivering MREs to Germany?" The table roared. Even old Mr. Henderson, who'd served in Vietnam, was wiping tears from his eyes. They had no idea that the scar hidden beneath my sleeve came from shrapnel when my cockpit window exploded. They didn't know that I'd flown that burning bird for 47 minutes through hostile airspace, hydraulics failing, fuel leaking, while a SEAL medic tried to keep his team leader alive in the back. I stood up slowly, the wooden bench creaking beneath me. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steady as a landing approach. "Need some air?" "You're outside already," Ryan called after me, triggering another wave of laughter. I walked toward the beach, my footsteps silent in the sand. Behind me, I heard Mom say something about me being too sensitive, and Dad agreeing that I never could take a joke. The words followed me like the smoke from hostile ground fire I'd once outmaneuvered. At the water's edge, I watched the sun sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, the same colors that had filled my cockpit that day. My hand unconsciously moved to my left ribs, where the classified commendation lay hidden in my inside pocket. The one that would never see light because Operation Sable Wind never officially happened. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, and I made a promise to the waves if they laughed at me one more time, if they called me weak just once more, I would stop protecting them from the truth. I would let them know exactly who Emily Carter really was and what she'd done in skies they couldn't even imagine. Behind me, Ryan's voice carried on the wind. "She probably gets scared of turbulence." The laughter echoed across the beach. I closed my eyes, hearing instead the voice of a dying SEAL whispering "thank you" as I landed that broken bird on a carrier deck with 2 engines gone and half a wing shot to hell. My silence had always been my gift to them, letting them live in their comfortable ignorance. But gifts, I decided as the last sliver of sun disappeared, could be taken back. That night, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan in my childhood bedroom spun lazy circles, And with each rotation, I was back there, Operation Sable Wind, the mission that didn't exist. It had started as a routine supply run to Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti. Then, at 0200 hours, everything changed. 8 SEALs needed immediate extraction from Somalia. Their Black Hawk was down, hostile forces closing in. I was the closest bird in the sky. Lieutenant Carter, the voice had crackled through my headset. This is a voluntary high-risk extraction. Your cargo plane isn't equipped for this. Sir, I'd replied, already banking hard toward the coordinates. Neither were the Wright brothers. The approach was impossible. Intel said at least 50 hostiles with RPGs surrounded the crash site. My C-130 wasn't built for combat landings on demolished streets. But those SEALs had 12 minutes, maybe less. I came in low and fast, using the burning wreckage of their Black Hawk as cover for my approach. The first RPG hit at 800 feet. The second took out my port engine. By the time my wheels touched that cratered excuse for a road, we were more fireball than aircraft. Marcus Hale. That was the name of the SEAL team leader, though I only learned it months later through whispered channels. He'd been hit bad chest wound, internal bleeding. His team had dragged him aboard my plane while bullets punched through the fuselage like angry hornets. I flew that dying bird back to base with half my instruments gone, navigating by stars and instinct while my co-pilot tried to stop the hydraulic fluid from spraying everywhere. 47 minutes of hell, every second. I thought we'd drop from the sky, but I could hear them in the back, one SEAL praying, another pressing on wounds, Marcus Hale fighting for each breath. They needed me to be stronger than the fear eating at my insides. We made it. Barely. The C-130 never flew again. They scraped it for parts after counting 237 bullet holes. But 8 SEALs walked off that plane alive. Marcus Hale spent 3 months in Germany recovering, then another 2 at Walter Reed. The after-action report was sealed immediately. The mission was classified beyond even top secret. It never happened. My commander pulled me aside a week later, his face grave. Carter, you're going to receive a commendation that no one will ever see. Your service record will show you flew supply runs that month. Nothing more. Why, I'd asked? Because the operation exposed intelligence methods we can't acknowledge. Because those SEALs were never there. Because sometimes, Lieutenant, the greatest acts of heroism are the ones nobody knows about. So I became a ghost story. The SEALs who knew were sworn to secrecy. My own squadron couldn't be told. And when I came home on leave, I was just Emily the cargo pilot who'd never seen real action. I pulled myself from the memory and grabbed my laptop. A few searches told me what I needed to know. Marcus Hale lived in Jacksonville now, just 3 hours south. Retired after 22 years of service. Ran a security consulting firm. His bio mentioned numerous combat deployments, medals for valor, the usual SEAL accolades. But nothing about Somalia. Nothing about the female pilot who'd pulled him from death's doorstep. There was a photo of him at a veterans event last month. I recognized those eyes, the same ones that had locked with mine as his team carried him aboard, him mouthing, "Thank you," through the blood. My phone showed 3:45 through the wall. I could hear Ryan snoring in his room, sleeping off his beer and glory. Tomorrow, he'd probably tell more stories about his weak little sister. Dad would laugh. Mom would make excuses for me. I opened my dresser drawer and pulled out the small wooden box hidden beneath old photos. Inside lay the Air Force Combat Action Medal that didn't exist, for a mission that never happened. Next to it, a folded piece of paper coordinates and a date. The only proof I had besides the scars. Marcus Hale was the only person who could verify my story without violating classification. But reaching out would mean breaking my own silence, admitting that their mockery had finally cut too deep. I closed the box and moved to the window, watching the ocean shimmer under the moonlight. They called me an office pilot. They laughed at my service. They had no idea that I'd earned my wings in fire and blood, that I'd made choices in seconds that most people couldn't make in lifetimes. The truth lived in shadows, buried under classification stamps and need-to-know protocols. But shadows, I realized, only existed until someone turned on the light. 2 weeks passed before the next family gathering Dad's 65th birthday. I'd almost convinced myself to skip it, but Mom's guilt-laden phone calls wore me down. Family is everything. Emily, your father isn't getting younger. So there I was again, in the same backyard, under strings of lights that swayed in the evening breeze. This time, the crowd was bigger. Dad's construction crew friends, Mom's entire book club, neighbors, and even some of Ryan's investment firm colleagues. My brother had outdone himself with the decorations and catering, making sure everyone knew he'd organized everything. I kept to the edges, nursing a gin and tonic, watching Dad open presents. Each gift came with a speech, a toast, a story. War stories from his army days, construction site adventures. Ryan's colleagues praising Dad for raising such a successful son. Then Ryan stood up, champagne glass catching the light. Before we cut the cake, I want to say something about family service. My stomach tightened. Dad served in the army. I serve our economy through strategic investments. And Emily? He paused for effect, that practiced pause he used in presentations. Emily serves coffee to pilots who do the real flying. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter. Some people didn't get the joke. Ryan clarified, his voice carrying across the yard like a carnival barker's. I'm kidding. She actually flies the plane. The cargo plane. Very important work. He shifted into a mock military voice. Lieutenant Carter, permission to handle spreadsheets, permission to deliver toilet paper to real warriors. The laughter exploded this time, uninhibited and cruel. Mom actually giggled behind her hand. Dad raised his beer in a mock salute. Even people who didn't know me were laughing at the joke I'd become. I stood up. The metal chair scraped against the patio stones, a harsh sound that cut through the mirth. Faces turned toward me, some still chuckling, others curious about my reaction. Going to cry. Ryan stage whispered. Like in flight school when they yelled at you. I never went to flight school, I said quietly. I graduated top of my class from undergraduate pilot training at Vance Air Force Base. Flight school is for Army aviators. But my correction was drowned out by more laughter. Someone, I think it was Dad's friend Jerry, shouted, She's got you there, Ryan. She knows her paperwork. I walked through the crowd, my spine straight, eyes forward. Each step felt like walking through mud, thick with their derision. Behind me, Ryan was already moving on to another joke about how I probably needed GPS to find my own base. At the garden gate, I stopped. There was a figure leaning against a black SUV parked across the street. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of stillness that came from years of patient waiting in dangerous places. The streetlight caught his face as he pushed off from the vehicle. Marcus Hale. My breath caught. He was older, gray, threading through his beard, but those eyes were unmistakable. He'd been watching, listening. His jaw was clenched tight, and I recognized the controlled fury in his posture, the same tension I'd seen in warriors forced to hold fire. Our eyes met across the distance. He gave me the slightest nod, the kind SEALs give each other before a mission. Then he looked past me at the party, at the people still laughing, and his expression darkened further. I shook my head slightly, not now. Not like this, and he understood immediately. But as I turned to leave, he called out, just loud enough for me to hear, They have no idea who you are. No, I replied without looking back. They don't. That needs to change. I finally turned. He was holding a bronze coin that glinted in the streetlight. Even from 20 feet away, I recognized it. A SEAL challenge coin. The kind team leaders gave to those who'd earned their deepest respect. 3 months, he said. Their next party. I'll be ready if you are. I thought about all the classified files, the sealed records, the promises to keep silent. Then I heard Ryan's voice carrying over the fence. At least she's consistent, always running away when things get tough. The laughter followed me down the street. But this time, it didn't cut as deep. Because I wasn't running away. I was preparing for war. Marcus's SUV engine started behind me, and as he drove past, he lowered the window. "You saved my life. Lieutenant Carter, time I returned the favor." The taillights disappeared around the corner, leaving me standing in the dark suburban street. Above, stars wheeled in the clear Carolina sky, the same stars I'd navigated by when all my instruments failed. Back then, I'd found my way home through seemingly impossible darkness. This time wouldn't be any different. The beach at dawn was empty except for the gulls and me. I'd been walking for an hour, trying to clear my head, when I heard footsteps on the sand behind me. Heavy, measured, deliberately audible. He wanted me to know he was coming. Marcus Hale looked different in daylight. The morning sun revealed more scars than I'd noticed before, one across his left eyebrow, another disappearing into his collar. He wore civilian clothes, but he moved like he was still in uniform, each step purposeful. "Lieutenant Carter," he said, stopping a respectful distance away. "I'm not a lieutenant anymore, just Emily." "No," he said firmly. "You'll always be Lieutenant Carter to me, to all of us who made it home that night." The waves crashed between us, filling the silence. I bent down, picked up a shell, examined its broken edge. "I know what you did," he continued, his voice rough with an emotion I couldn't quite place. "Every second of those 47 minutes, Torres was conscious in the back. He told us everything. How you flew through hell with half your controls gone. How you refused to dump fuel even though it would have made the plane easier to handle because you knew we needed every drop to make it back. How you landed that bird on fumes and prayer. It was my job." "Bullshit." The word cracked like a whip. "Your job was flying cargo to established bases. What you did was beyond duty. You saved 8 operators, including me, and never asked for recognition." "The mission was classified." "The mission doesn't exist," he corrected. "But we do. Bennett's got 3 kids now. Torres is teaching at Coronado. Williams opened that restaurant he always talked about. 8 lives, 8 futures, because one pilot decided our lives were worth more than her career, her safety, her everything." I threw the shell into the waves, and I stayed silent so men like you could keep their stories clean. No messy questions about unsanctioned operations. No congressional hearings. No exposure of intelligence assets. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out the bronze coin I'd seen that night. He held it out, and I saw the details: the seal trident on one side, an inscription on the other. I took it, feeling its weight. "Read it," he said. The inscription was small but clear. L.T.E. Carter, quiet professional, never forgotten. "Every man on that team has one," Marcus said. "We had them made 6 months after Germany. Unofficially, of course. But we swore that if the day ever came when you needed us, we'd break our silence. You could lose your security clearance, your consulting contracts. You think I care?" His laugh was bitter. "I heard what your family says about you. Your brother, mocking you in front of civilians who wouldn't last 10 seconds in your boots. Your parents, dismissing your service like it was summer camp. It makes me sick." I handed the coin back, but he closed my fingers around it. "Keep it. You earned it in blood and fire." He paused, then added, 3 months ago, I got a call from Admiral Patterson. The classification on Sable Wind is under review. Not declassified, but flexible, especially regarding non-operational details. My heart skipped. Meaning I can confirm certain facts without violating the National Security Act, that 8 SEALs were recovered from a hostile situation, that exceptional airmanship was displayed, that lives were saved through extraordinary courage. But not the specifics. The specifics stay buried, but the truth that you're a hero, not a punchline that can come out. I watched the sunrise paint the ocean gold, weighing the coin in my hand. "They won't believe you. Ryan will say you're just being polite." Marcus smiled then, and I understood why enemies feared him. "I won't be alone. Torres and Bennett live within driving distance. Williams would fly in from Texas for this. We don't leave our own behind. Lieutenant, And make no mistake, you're one of us." "I'm not a SEAL." "No," he agreed. "You're something rarer. You're the angel who pulled SEALs out of hell, and at your parents' next party. Everyone's going to know it." He pulled out his phone, showed me a text thread. 7 names I recognized, all confirming they'd be there. The message at the top, from Torres, simply read, "Time to pay our debt." "This could get complicated," I warned. "Combat always is." He pocketed the phone. "But you didn't leave us in Somalia. We won't leave you here." As he turned to leave, I called after him. "Marcus, why were you at my father's party?" He stopped, looked back. "I've been watching since you got home, waiting for the right moment. Your dad invited half the neighborhood easy enough to stand in the shadows." His expression hardened. "Every joke they made, every laugh at your expense. I wanted to storm in there and set them straight. But I knew you needed to make that choice. And if I'd never made it, then I'd have watched over you forever. Lieutenant, some debts can't be measured in years." He walked away, leaving me holding the coin, its bronze warming in my palm. The gulls called overhead, and I realized I was smiling, really smiling for the first time in months. The revenge wouldn't be violent. It wouldn't even be cruel. It would simply be the truth, delivered by men whose word no one could question. And Ryan would finally understand what real warriors looked like and who they honored. 3 months. I'd marked each day on my calendar, not in anticipation but in dread. Part of me hoped Marcus would forget, that his brotherhood would decide silence was safer. But Navy SEALs didn't forget debts. The Labor Day barbecue was Mom's pride, the social event of her year. The house bustled with preparation for 2 days prior. Ryan flew in from Manhattan, bringing his new girlfriend, a fashion blogger who kept taking photos of everything. The guest list had swelled to nearly 60 people. I arrived at 3 in the afternoon, wearing a simple blue sundress, my hair pulled back. Normal, unremarkable, invisible just how they preferred me. "Emily," Mom air-kissed my cheek. "You look rested. Help me with the potato salad." The yard was already filling. Dad held court by the grill, telling stories about his construction days. Ryan worked the crowd like a politician, his girlfriend documenting everything for her followers. I recognized most faces' neighbors, Dad's poker buddies, Mom's garden club, a few local veterans from the VFW. By 5 o'clock, the party was in full swing. That's when Ryan started his routine, louder than usual, playing to his girlfriend's camera. "Let me tell you about military service in the Carter family," he announced, raising his beer. "Dad, Army Corps of Engineers, built bridges under fire and Desert Storm. Me, I've raised $12 million in veteran-owned business investments." He paused, finding me in the crowd. "And Emily. Emily delivers care packages. Basically, Amazon Prime with wings." The laughter came right on cue. His girlfriend giggled, phone still recording. "Is that really what she does?" "Oh, it's very dangerous," Ryan continued, his voice dripping sarcasm. "Sometimes they run out of coffee creamer at the base. Imagine the horror." More laughter. Dad chuckled, shaking his head. Mom tried to shush Ryan, but she was smiling. I stood by the fence, counting my breaths, fingers touching the challenge coin in my pocket. To my sister. Ryan raised his beer higher. Who fights traffic more than battles? The toast echoed across the yard. Glasses raised, laughter erupted. Then the gate opened. Marcus Hale entered first, and the yard seemed to shrink around him. He wore his navy dress blues, ribbons covering his chest, the gold seal trident gleaming in the afternoon sun. Behind him, 3 more men in uniform, Torres, Bennett, and Williams. All in dress blues, all wearing their full decorations. The laughter died instantly. Marcus walked straight to my father, his bearing military perfect. "Mr. Carter, I'm Marcus Hale, retired Navy SEAL Team 3. Thank you for your service in Desert Storm." Dad shook his hand, confused but impressed. "Thank you, son. Are you here for someone?" "Yes, sir. I'm here for your daughter." Every eye swiveled to me. Ryan's beer stopped halfway to his lips. Marcus turned to face the crowd, his voice carrying the authority of 2 decades in command. I apologize for interrupting, but I've been listening to you mock someone who deserves your highest respect. Look, buddy, Ryan started. You mock a woman. Marcus continued, his voice cutting through Ryan's protest like a blade. Who flew through hell to save SEAL lives? She saved my life. The silence was absolute. Even the kids at the next yard over seemed to quiet down. What are you talking about? Ryan's girlfriend lowered her phone. Genuinely confused. Torres stepped forward. 7 years ago, 8 SEALs were trapped in hostile territory. Our extraction failed. We had minutes to live. One pilot volunteered to fly a cargo plane not built for combat into a hot zone to get us out. Bennett picked up the narrative. She flew through RPG fire, lost an engine, had every reason to abort. Instead, she landed on a street barely wide enough for her wings, under heavy fire, and held that position until we were aboard. Williams's voice was thick with emotion. Then she flew us home with half her plane shot to pieces. 47 minutes of impossible flying. Every one of us should have died that night. Marcus reached into his pocket, pulled out a folder. The mission was classified. Still is, mostly. But I have authorization to confirm that Lieutenant Emily Carter displayed extraordinary heroism in service to this nation and its warriors. He looked directly at Ryan. You mock her for flying cargo. She turned a cargo plane into a combat rescue aircraft through pure will and skill. You say she couldn't handle pressure. She handled more pressure in 47 minutes than most people face in a lifetime. Ryan's face had gone pale. His girlfriend was recording again, eyes wide. This is... Dad's voice cracked. Emily, is this true? I finally spoke, my voice steady. Every word. Why didn't you tell us? Mom whispered. Marcus answered for me. Because the mission was classified. Because she honored her oath of silence even when it meant enduring your ridicule. Because that's what quiet professionals do. He turned to me, and all 4 SEALs snapped to attention. The salute was crisp, perfect, and held for 3 full seconds. When they lowered their hands, Marcus spoke again. We owe you everything, Lieutenant Carter. It's time everyone here knew that. Ryan's beer bottle slipped from his hand, shattering on the patio. The sound seemed to break the spell. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone started clapping. I think it was Mr. Henderson. Then others joined. But I only had eyes for Ryan, watching his world reorganize itself around this new truth. His mouth opened and closed. No words coming out. For once, my brother had nothing funny to say. The applause died into uncomfortable silence. Ryan stood frozen, glass shards around his feet, his face cycling through emotions: disbelief, embarrassment, anger. His girlfriend had lowered her phone, looking between us like she was watching a tennis match. Come on, Ryan finally managed, forcing a laugh that fooled no one. You're kidding, right? This is some kind of... What? Elaborate prank. Did Emily hire you guys? The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus's expression went from respectful to dangerous in a heartbeat. Torres actually took a step forward before Bennett caught his arm. Hire us! Williams's voice was soft, which made it worse. Son, do you have any idea what you just said? Ryan. Dad's voice carried a warning, but Ryan was already too deep, his pride refusing to let him back down. Look, I'm sure my sister did something helpful, but... Helpful? Torres cut him off. Your sister flew a burning aircraft through surface-to-air fire. She had shrapnel in her shoulder and kept flying. She saved 8 fathers, husbands, brothers, and you're standing here, in your pressed khakis and boat shoes, questioning it. Marcus reached into his folder again, pulling out a document. The header was partially redacted, but Department of Defense and Combat Action Report were clearly visible. This is what I'm authorized to share, the parts that aren't blacked out. He handed it to my father, who read it with trembling hands. I watched his face change as he processed the words exceptional valor, complete disregard for personal safety, extraordinary airmanship under extreme hostile conditions. My God, Dad whispered. He looked up at me, and for the first time in years, really saw me. Emily, why didn't you ever say anything? Ryan snatched the paper from Dad's hands. This could be about anyone. The names redacted. Marcus pulled out his phone, swiped to a photo. This is my medical record from Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany. See the date, see the mission reference number. He swiped again. This is the same reference number on that report. I nearly died that night. Your sister is the reason I didn't. Ryan, the girlfriend tugged at his sleeve. Just apologize. For what? Making jokes. It's what families do? No. I finally stepped forward, my voice cutting through his excuses. It's what you do, to make yourself feel bigger. To make sure everyone knows you're the successful one? I didn't know. You never asked. The words came out sharp as shrapnel. 7 years, Ryan, 7 years of Sunday dinners, holidays, birthdays. You never once asked about my service. Not one real question. You just assumed I was a failure because I didn't make 6 figures on Wall Street. The crowd had formed a circle now, witnesses to our family's unraveling. Mom stood by the potato salad, hands covering her mouth. Dad still held the report, reading it again like the words might change. Bennett spoke up. Ma'am, your daughter's actions that night were taught at SEAL training as an example of inter-service cooperation under fire. She's a legend, even if her name's been redacted from the story. Ryan's girlfriend raised her phone again, then seemed to think better of it. But others weren't so discreet. I saw at least 3 people recording, neighbors who'd listened to years of jokes at my expense. The funny thing is, Marcus said, addressing the crowd now, she could have told you any time. The classification was loosened 2 years ago. She could have shut down every joke, every insult. But she didn't, because keeping the secret kept us safe, protected ongoing operations. That's integrity. He turned back to Ryan. You talked about fighting traffic versus fighting battles. Your sister fought physics, aerodynamics, and death itself to bring us home. What's your hardest day look like? A failed merger, a bad quarterly report. Ryan's face flushed red. You don't know anything about what I do. Portfolio management, Torres said flatly. Moving numbers on screens, important to the economy. Sure, but don't you dare compare it to what she did. Williams added, we looked you up, know what we found. A lot of talk about veteran initiatives on your company website, using military metaphors in your presentations, building your brand on borrowed valor while mocking actual service. That's not I support veterans, I've raised millions. You've made millions, I corrected. There's a difference, and you've used Dad's service and the idea of military honor to do it, while treating my actual service as a punchline. Dad set down the report, his movements careful and deliberate. Ryan, apologize to your sister. Dad, now. Ryan looked around the yard at the SEALs in their dress blues, at the neighbors recording, at his girlfriend's disappointed face. His mouth worked silently, pride warring with the growing realization that he'd been catastrophically wrong. He looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the brother who used to check for monsters under my bed. I didn't know. No, I said quietly. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. The silence stretched until Marcus filled it. Your sister's a hero, Mr. Carter. You should be proud. Dad's eyes glistened. I am. I wish I'd known sooner. But I wasn't looking at Dad. I was watching Ryan shrink into himself, his carefully constructed superiority crumbling in front of everyone who mattered to him. The golden child learning he'd been fool's gold all along. The reckoning was far from over. The party dissolved within an hour. Guests mumbled excuses and slipped away, leaving crushed cups and half-eaten burgers as evidence of their hasty retreat. The SEALs had gone too. After Marcus pressed a business card into my hand and whispered, "Call if you need anything. Ever." I was cleaning up, stacking plates mechanically, when Dad found me on the back porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in familiar shades of orange and red. He stood there for a long moment, hands in his pockets, looking older than his 65 years. "Emily," I kept wiping down the picnic table. "Yeah, Dad. Can we talk? Isn't it a little late for that?" He flinched but moved closer, sitting heavily on the bench. I knew. My hand froze mid-wipe. "What? Not the details, not the mission. But I knew something happened. About 2 years ago. I ran into Colonel Morrison at the hardware store, your old wing commander. He'd been drinking, started talking about how the Air Force lost one of its best when you didn't re-enlist. Said you were the kind of pilot who comes along once in a generation." I set down the rag, turned to face him. "You knew for 2 years. I asked him what he meant. He caught himself, said he couldn't discuss it. But the way he looked at me, like I should already know, like I was an idiot for not knowing." Dad rubbed his face with weathered hands. "I went home and looked you up. Freedom of Information Act request on your service record. Most of it came back redacted, but there were hints. Commendations with no details. A gap in your flight logs that coincided with something classified. And you said nothing." I was scared. The admission came out rough, like pulled teeth. Scared that if I acknowledged it, I'd have to face what I'd done. How I'd let Ryan mock you. How I'd laughed along. How I'd failed you as a father. "So you let it continue." I thought. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I thought protecting Ryan's confidence was important. He was struggling when he first started his career. The jokes about you seemed to make him feel better about himself. I told myself it was harmless sibling rivalry." "You didn't protect him, Dad. You just kept him blind." "I know that now." He reached into his pocket, pulled out something that caught the dying light. A challenge coin, but different from Marcus's. Older. Army Special Forces. This was given to me in Desert Storm, by a Green Beret whose unit we supported. Said I earned it for building a bridge under fire. He set it on the table between us. I've carried it for 34 years. My proudest possession. Proof that I was more than just an engineer, that I mattered. I picked up the coin, felt its worn edges. "Dad, you earned something like this, didn't you? Something that proves what you did." I thought of my hidden medal, the classified commendation. "Yeah, but you never showed us, never threw it in Ryan's face during one of his jokes." "It wasn't about proving anything to you." "No," he agreed. "It was about honor. Real honor. The kind that doesn't need witnesses." He stood up, joints protesting. "I should have given you this years ago. A parent is supposed to recognize strength in their children, not weakness." He pressed the coin into my hand. "You earned this more than I ever did." "Dad, I can't take your 'it's not mine anymore.' Hasn't been since I chose your brother's ego over your truth." He started toward the house, then stopped. "Your mother's inside, crying. She keeps saying, my baby girl was a hero and I called her sensitive. Ryan's in his room, haven't heard a sound in an hour. And we broke something today. As a family. Maybe it needed breaking. Maybe we built our whole dynamic on the wrong foundation, Ryan's success. Your supposed failure. Now we have to figure out what's left." He went inside, leaving me alone with 2 challenge coins and the wreckage of our family mythology. Through the window, I could see Mom in the kitchen, standing at the sink but not washing anything, just staring at her hands. I walked to the edge of the yard where the grass met the sand. The ocean stretched endlessly, indifferent to human drama. I thought about all the times I'd stood here, swallowing their jokes, choosing silence over truth. "Don't stay silent again," I whispered to the wind, repeating Dad's plea. But silence hadn't been my weakness. It had been my gift to them, a gift they'd never understood they were receiving. Every joke I didn't counter, every insult I absorbed, Every accomplishment I hid, all to protect them from the weight of their own smallness. Now they had to carry that weight themselves. I heard footsteps on the deck. Ryan stood in the doorway, his face puffy, eyes red-rimmed. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Emily, not tonight, Ryan, but I need to. No, you need to sit with this. Feel it. Understand what you did for 7 years, tomorrow or next week or next month. When you've actually processed it, then we can talk. He nodded miserably and retreated inside. Through the window, I watched him slump at the kitchen table, his girlfriend rubbing his back. She'd stayed, which surprised me. Maybe there was hope for him yet. The stars were coming out, navigation points in the darkness. I held up Dad's coin, let it catch the last sliver of sunset. They thought silence meant weakness. They were about to learn it had always been strength they couldn't fathom, holding back truths that would have destroyed their comfortable delusions. But I was done holding back. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing incessantly. 43 missed calls, over 100 texts. My social media, dormant for years, had exploded overnight. Ryan's girlfriend had posted the video. Not maliciously, she'd actually captioned it. Today, I learned what real heroism looks like, and what it costs when family doesn't see you for who you are. The video went viral within hours. By noon, local news had picked it up. Unknown female pilot revealed as hero in classified SEAL rescue. Marcus had been strategic. He'd given just enough information to validate my service without compromising operational security. The story spread like wildfire through military communities, veteran groups, and beyond. Silent Hero started trending. The Wilmington Veterans Association called, asking if I'd speak at their memorial ceremony. 3 Air Force associations wanted to honor me at their annual galas. But the call that mattered came from the Pentagon Admiral Patterson himself. Lieutenant Carter, we're reviewing the classification of Operation Sable Wind. Given the public attention, we're prepared to officially acknowledge your role, within limits. Sir, I never wanted. I know what you wanted. Lieutenant, you wanted to serve with honor and go home quietly. But sometimes the world needs to know that heroes exist, that they're not all square-jawed men in action movies. Sometimes they're quiet women who fly cargo planes into hell because it's the right thing to do. The memorial ceremony was a week later. I stood at the podium in my dress blues, the ones I thought I'd never wear again, looking out at a crowd of hundreds. Dad sat in the front row, tears streaming down his weathered face. Mom clutched his hand. Mascara long since surrendered. And Ryan. Ryan sat 3 rows back, smaller somehow, diminished not by humiliation but by understanding. I kept my remarks brief. Some people fight for applause, others for glory. I flew for the 8 men who needed to come home. That night over Somalia, I wasn't thinking about medals or recognition. I was thinking about the SEAL in my cargo hold whispering his daughter's name, about the medic refusing to give up on his team leader, about promises I'd made to bring them home. I paused, found Ryan's eyes. For 7 years, my family thought I was weak. They weren't wrong. I was weak enough to let them believe it rather than shatter their comfortable assumptions. But strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to carry someone else's weight, even when they're mocking you for stumbling. The applause was thunderous, but I barely heard it. I was watching Ryan's face crumble, watching him finally understand that every joke had been a knife, and I'd chosen to bleed rather than fight back. After the ceremony, he found me by my car. His girlfriend stood a respectful distance away, giving us space. Emily. His voice broke. I'm proud of you. I studied him for a long moment, this brother who'd made himself big by making me small. I know you are. Now. I was so stupid, so cruel. I don't know how to live with it, I said simply, like I lived with your mockery. Let it shape you into someone better, or let it destroy you. Your choice. Do you hate me? I considered the question, fingering the 2 challenge coins in my pocket, Marcus's and Dad's. No, Ryan, but I don't need your approval anymore. I never did. That's what you're really grieving, not the sister you mocked, but the power you thought you had. I got in my car, started the engine. Through the rearview mirror, I watched him stand there, shoulders shaking. His girlfriend approached, wrapped an arm around him. Maybe she'd help him rebuild into someone worth knowing. 3 months later, I received a package from Ryan. Inside was a framed photo from the memorial ceremony, me at the podium, strong and uncompromising. The inscription read, "To my sister, the real hero in the family. I'm sorry it took me so long to see you." Beneath it was a letter, pages and pages of apology, of recognition, of promise to do better. At the bottom, a postscript. "I've started volunteering at the VA, driving veterans to appointments. It's nothing compared to what you did, but maybe it's a start." I hung the photo in my apartment, next to my shadow box containing the medal that officially didn't exist. Every morning, I looked at both reminders that revenge doesn't always require destruction. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply stepping into the light and letting the truth do its work. The silence was broken. The truth had wings. And finally, I was free. My name is Emily Carter. I flew through hell and brought angels home, and the only approval I ever needed was my own. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're hearing this. Drop a comment below, and let's connect across the miles. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Sometimes the strongest among us are the ones who chose silence, until the day they choose to soar.